All right, and I think we have a quorum for conservation. So, Aaron, I guess you can speak up anytime you want because I'm one half of this meeting and you're the other half. So, welcome to the joint meeting between the Conservation Commission and Open Space Commission or Open Space Recreation Committee. First on the agenda is new business. Scott, you want to take it away?
Sure, thank you. Really, I just kind of wanted to, obviously we know what's on the agenda tonight is, we have several parcels of land that we want to put into the care and custody of conservation and protect it. This has been something that we've heard loud and clear from the residents that it's important to them. It's certainly important to the selectmen. It's important to me. So I'm glad that we're all on board. I wanted to get this meeting for a couple of reasons. One is to get the Open Space Recreation Committee together with the Conservation Commission, because a lot of the goals at the end of the day are things that you both can work on together. And I think that you can certainly work with each other and get a lot of these properties protected and identify some other properties that we're not aware of right now that we want to preserve or put into open space. I won't take up too much time. It's your meeting. I'll be here to work with you and go through the properties and parcels with you. Dan Brailman has sent me over a bunch of maps that'll help you identify what and just kind of get an overview of what we're talking about. So he has them on his screen. I have them on my screen, so we're happy to share them with you. But first, we do have Melissa Cryan from the Mass Division of Conservation Services, and thank you for joining us, Melissa. But Melissa's going to talk a few minutes about some of the programs that the state has and that she can help us out with. So I'll turn it over to you, Melissa. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much, Scott. You're batting 1,000 because first you pronounced my last name correctly and you got the right division that I'm with. Everybody wants me to be from DCR, which isn't shocking. They're definitely the most front forward of our agencies. So thanks so much, guys, for having me be here. And I apologize if my cat walks through the camera because he is lurking in the wings and is very interested apparently in Abington's open space. So Dan and Scott have asked me to talk briefly about first just open space and recreation plans in general and like why you would even want to bother going through this process. And then after that, just a little bit on specifically one of our grant programs. And so just diving right in, what is an open space and recreation plan? Well, it pretty much is what it sounds like. It's a document that describes a community's open space and recreation resources. And we like to think that it serves as a blueprint for action for decision makers like the folks in the Zoom room here. We like to think that it's important to consider a broad definition of open space. I think we all think about things like parks and conservation land and agricultural land. And of course, all of those are open space, but we want you to think about casting a wide net when you're considering in your mind what open spaces. Consider undeveloped land like vacant lots. If you have brownfield sites in your community that can be cleaned up and redeveloped into, say, community gardens, things like that. So just be thinking a little bit more broadly and maybe even creatively to suit the recreation needs of your community. And so again, like why would you write an open space and recreation plan? Oftentimes nowadays communities have many different plans on their shelves, like whether you've written a municipal vulnerability plan or a hazard mitigation plan, or you just have other documents that document different types of open space and recreation resources in your community. It can put all of those resources into one place. It also, during the public participation portion of the plan, it can help to educate the residents of your community about conservation and recreation issues, such that when it comes to a time when perhaps you need town meeting support to pass a warrant article about open space or conservation, it's not out of the blue what what the heck are you talking about? They've already gone through that education through the open space and recreation process. The plan identifies actions to protect and manage resources. So you have a starting point with this plan, how to go about protecting your resources. But of course, we're not so dumb to think that people just love planning for planning's sake, even though I would love that as a planner. But it also, if you have an OSRP completed, it makes you eligible for grant funding through my division. And Abington's plan is currently good, and I think it expires at the end of April this year. So you currently have another couple months of eligibility, but so soon you would be needing to think about updating your plan. The office, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, which my division sits within, does offer a planning grant to help fund which you could apply for, and that would help fund the development of an OSRP. The town could hire a consultant to help you work through that process. So that would be something that you could look into. I don't administer that grant program directly, but if I think I sent Scott you the link to that program, so you could share that with the group. So that's just a brief overview of OSRPs, and then getting a little bit more into a couple of the grant programs that could help fund. I know the town is interested in trail development. So the Land and Water Conservation Fund is one of the grants that I specifically myself administer. It's a grant program that we administer at the division on behalf of the National Park Service. It's federal funding that we administer for them for the Commonwealth. And we can fund a conservation land acquisition, parkland acquisition, park renovation or development, but also trail development through the Land and Water program. It has a 50% reimbursement rate, and it is a reimbursement program, which means that the town would have to budget for 100% of the total project cost upfront. Once you spend the money, we reimburse you 50% of what you've spent. This year, the grant deadline was back in last month in January. In this year's grant round, the maximum grant award was $750,000. So you can get a good chunk of change. And in some cases, if you're in a particular area of the state, depending on the type of project, if you're in an area that has not enough tree canopy, or you are well suited for climate change resiliency through Nature Conservancy mapping, you could be actually eligible for up to $1 million. So that's one source of funding for trails. Another source of funding that is within our office for trails would be the park grant, which is for parks, and we could help you build trails through parks. And if you would like to acquire new conservation land where trails could be built, we have what's called the land grant, and that is an acronym, as is the park grant, PARC. Land grant is LAND. Very creative acronyms. And I do not administer this grant, nor is it run through my office, but is in fact run through DCR. But it would be wrong of me, if you're interested in trails, to not mention the regional, the Mass Trails program, as it is now called. But I would not want to speak on that, because that is not one that I administer myself. So that is my 10-minute or less overview of both OSRPs and some of the grant programs that may be helpful for doing what it is that you guys are interested in doing in Abington.
Thank you, Melissa. That was great. Does anybody on open space have, or recreation or conservation, have any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Oh, sorry. You can go first, Nikki.
Sorry, Aaron, real quick. Melissa, is there any way you can send us the grant deadlines for the future deadlines for these 3 particular grants?
Yep. So they're actually all on the websites. I can tell you that, as I said, the Land and Water grant just recently closed in January. That was January 24th was the deadline. And that it's not set every year that's the deadline, but it's typically around the deadline. and the land and the park grant will be posted in March with a mid-July deadline. So my best recommendation to you would be to just Google Division of Conservation Services or the land grant. And again, that's an acronym, or PARC, and look there, say mid to end of March. And then you can, that will be when the grant round will be posted, and the grant application, the bid package, all of that. And we do offer grant workshops in May. We offer 2 different sessions with the same information, and that we run through how to put together a grant application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron, I'll let you.
Yeah, I was just curious, Melissa, if there's any sort of precedent, because our town had created an open space plan 5 or so years ago, as to, continuing that, or does it need to sort of be completely rewritten every 5 years? I was just
So
curious
if
how that
you,
works.
that is a very common question. If you review the Open Space and Recreation Planners Workbook, there's an appendix. One of the appendices, shows what you have to update every year, what you don't have to update every year, and what you could update every year. Like, for instance, you have to do the public participation process every time. But for instance, you could copy and paste from the current plan into the new plan. The geology section, like, let's hope your geology hasn't significantly changed in the past 7 years, or you've had something happen that would be devastating. And certain things that you might want to think about updating, like since the census information just came out, you'd really want to update the population characteristic sections, those sorts of things.
Awesome, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Dan,
Scott?
did you have your hand up?
Yes. If there are more questions, who could we go to get answers?
For open space and recreation plans, I'm the one that reviews all of the plans, so you certainly could be direct those questions to me. I'm happy to answer them, and really with any of the grants of the division that the division offers, I'm happy to be the kind of like the first line of defense, and then I can send the questions to who they need to go to.
Yeah, but I sense there's a little bit of an urgency to getting this plan rewritten. What can we expect it to take us? We only have a couple months now.
Yeah, I would say that if you are interested in applying for a land or a park grant in July, you really should get going ASAP on the update of the OSRP. I'm going to see how many acronyms I can use in this government presentation, because the public process can take a while if you do a thorough job on public input. It shouldn't happen overnight. But I would also say that if you guys have been doing some kind of public input in other ways already, you could use that as your basis for moving forward with the plan and develop a survey and kind of go from there. But that would be where I would recommend that you start, and then also look at the different sections of the plan and kind of divvy up where maybe people's expertise lie. And if somebody's, say, really good at the history of the community, give them that section to look at for the current plan and revise. Or if somebody's really gotten into looking at the updated census information, they can start looking at the population characteristic sections. So really a divide and conquer kind of tactic might be helpful.
And what kind of structure do you find works for towns? Like, is it to have one person that's kind of an overview of the whole thing, or where do we start?
Yeah, so if with what I see with communities that do it through a volunteer committee. And that is actually what happens with really the vast majority of plans are written with volunteers, with oftentimes maybe a municipal staff person that is the one that's the final reviewer and submitter of the plan. Is that, like I said, you kind of divide and conquer, and then there's maybe one final editor so that there can be more or less like a common voice on the plan. But again, this isn't, you're not submitting your graduate thesis to Harvard, it's like, I'm the one reviewing it. So if I'm not like, wow, this section 2 reads differently than section 6. I mean, I'm not reading it for that sort of thing, but it's good to maybe, if somebody wants to be the overall editor of the plan, if somebody in the group feels like that's a strong suit of theirs.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does Kathy have a question, or does her iPad have a question?
It's my iPad for sure.
Yeah, you don't care. It's just your iPad that does.
I actually had a question for the Open Space Committee and Scott, which is, in the past, I've been on the Open Space Committee, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times, but we always had the Old Colony Planning Council gave us a consultant to help us write it, and it was hugely helpful.
Yeah.
Because
So we have reached out to Old Colony Planning, and Liz Shea and I have actually put in for several grants, and I've had a couple meetings with OCPC, but we can't get them at this time. They're pretty much busy doing the assisting communities with the new MBTA planning that we have to do. So we have been tracking down some other consultants, and Kathy, it only comes up as Kathy's iPad, so I'm assuming this is Kathy Crichton.
that's correct.
I want to say that for the record, for whoever's taking the minutes. So yeah, we did reach out to them first, and like I said, we were kind of hopeful that we were going to get some assistance from them. But we have also reached out to a few other consultants, and Liz has put it out on listserv to see who's out there that's done this before, and sort of what other towns have experienced just doing the update and what it's cost them. So we're pretty confident that we will have someone relatively soon on board to help with this committee. I think Melissa's given them some great information here, and certainly we're able to reach out to her as we go forward. I like the divide and conquer plan. It sounds good. Unfortunately for me and some of the staff at Town Hall, up until May 4th, we're going to be pretty engrossed in getting ready for town meeting and wrapping up warrant articles in the budget. Liz and I will do everything we can to assist on this, but again, it is going to be tough. I don't know that we'll necessarily meet the deadline, but we certainly won't be much beyond it, and certainly we'll have ourselves in good shape, I would think, in time for any June or July deadlines for applying for grants. And again, this is, everything that we're doing now is great, and it's moving forward, because, up until, I don't know how long ago, we didn't even have the Open Space Committee. So I'm glad that that this was brought to our attention, that we brought it back forward, that it's everybody's embracing it and doing what we can to keep it going.
And I also think you guys should feel some level of security as well, because it's not like your last plan was completed back in 1982 or something like that. If your current plan doesn't expire until April, you're starting with some good solid footing.
Yeah, no, I thought OCPC was really helpful, but I'm glad to hear that we're going to get a consultant as well. I'm sure the committee's going to have to put in some time, but it's good to hear that they're going to try to get them a consultant as well, because they're so new. Thank you.
And I would also just give a little tip that if you look at the Open Space and Recreation Planners Workbook, there's a sample section for each of the required sections from an approved OSRP. And I purposefully selected those because they are short, and they include all of the things that the required elements. So the idea that you don't need to be super verbose to get a plan approved. I say sometimes that I feel like we get kind of back into our middle school mindset that longer equals better, and sometimes brevity is fine.
Is there a link for that on your site?
There is, again, I would just, because all of the state websites are like approximately 1,000 characters long, I would just Google Open Space and Recreation Planners Workbook, Massachusetts, and it will come up.
Perfect.
I guess that's my only concern is that if there's a lead person on this, then the process will keep going. And it seems like Scott has been keeping the process going. But as you say, Scott, you're pretty swamped. So the Open Space Committee is pretty much the lead on this, right?
That is their charge, is to follow through. And again, we'll give them whatever support that we can. We will find you a consultant, and certainly reaching out to folks who have been through this in the past, like Kathy Crichton, for example. I know that if you reach out to her, I'm sure Kathy's going to help you and give you some answers. And Dan is obviously a great resource. So there'll be opportunities where we'll have to reach out to others. We'll have a kickoff meeting at some point where we'll get as many of the stakeholders together as possible, that we can divvy up as many of the tasks as possible.
Scott, were there any more grant opportunities, or did Melissa basically cover all the bases with her presentation?
Yeah, Melissa, she pretty much touched on some of the real ones that are probably the most attractive to us right now. Certainly anything that we can do to help find assistance in updating the plan is number one. And then the next priorities, as Dan and I had been talking, and as you mentioned, was now as we're taking these properties, we want to make sure that we make them accessible and usable for everybody. So putting in the trails and finding areas for the trails, or finding things that within that open space recreation plan that we already have, and properties that you've already put into conservation, do we have the ability to put trails there, and just make sure that whatever we're preserving to some extent is accessible to the public to use.
Yeah, I know. I'm also on the the Ames Knoll Advisory Board. I think we're meeting on Thursday night this week. Now over there at the state park, the New England Mountain Biking Association, they're huge with basically maintaining the trails that are out there. So maybe you could get them on some of these parcels to, if it's to help us out. I mean, I know maybe that land down by Diane Circle, which abuts the state park, if that ever comes before us, I'm sure they'd probably love to be able to get out there. I know there's already trails established down there from way back when the old development was planned back in the late 70s. But that's a discussion for another time. But there's groups that are willing to do stuff if they have the land to do it on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're definitely willing to have them, come and meet with Open Space, or even if they want to come and meet with me first, but I'll certainly direct them to the committee. But yeah, anything like that would be great.
Yep.
Do we have like this big overall map that shows here are all the parcels that are owned by the town that are already conservation, and here's what we would like to acquire, just so we could get an idea of, say, people have talked about a town forest, or just a general trail that people could go on, or for whatever purpose. Is there any documentation like that we could look at?
I don't know. Is there anything in the plan that Nicole, that you guys are aware of, or Dan, is there anything you're aware of? I'm not aware of anything. It is something that we could do and should do.
I think that's something that absolutely should be done. I'd like to see some open space left, like, have anybody been down to Hingham's World End? World's End is a beautiful place. And you leave nothing behind but your footprints, and that's what it says. Whatever you bring in, you take out. And so not just wetlands, but uplands and forests are important too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've been trying to put the tax maps together. If I'm able to share screen, I can show you an example of the tax. Okay, here, this is, can everybody see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, this is the area that's already conservation. And this is the parcels. There's 4 parcels here that are the ones that were taken off the auction. And
That's
then
Zero
Zero
Rockland
Oakland.
Street.
0 Oakland Street.
Oakland, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is,
Make that a
this is,
little bit bigger.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it-
hard to read
Well,
the,
make it bigger.
is it, it's filling my screen, so does it look small on your screens?
it's looking better. Thank you.
Better. Yeah.
Zoom in, right?
I can't see what you're seeing, but this is filling my screen, so
Well,
Okay.
that's because you're in
Zoom in.
HD.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you
what-
zoom in, Dan,
Zoom in.
just a little bit more so we can kind of try to read. I mean, I know it says Town of Abington, that's all it says there. If you go to your top right of your screen, there's the
Yeah.
little magnifying glasses.
Yeah.
Come down a little bit to the
Oh.
next. Yep, right to the
Right on the
left.
map.
Yep, on the map screen. there's-
Okay.
Right there.
yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
Yep.
Just keep it now. Yep.
Does that,
Okay.
all right.
Yep.
That's
All right,
better.
so these are the 4 parcels that were in the auction that were taken off the auction. That these are the 4 parcels that are in the to be put into conservation tonight if we can do it,
Mhm.
or as soon as possible. These are also areas that are town-owned parcels, and this is conservation land here. So this is actually 4 tax maps that I put together in Adobe Illustrator and colored in very crudely. This is just a crude attempt at what you're talking about. But if we had a whole map, it's just time consuming, and this is just one example. I spent a few hours working on that and a couple other maps. But I think it's a great idea because then you get to look at. I can also go back to showing you some of the areas that I have some photographs of that area. This is the forest in 0 Oakland. This is what the woods look like. Can you see those?
Yep.
Okay, and it's an oak forest, a beautiful oak forest. These beautiful oak trees that have the big, nice oak rounded leaves. And if you go to Rockland, 0 Rockland Street, there's all kinds of fantastic stuff like this tree growing into splitting a rock apart. I mean, it's just, as someone might say, a walk of pleasure to find these areas. 0 Oakland Street has a cart path that goes through it, and 0 Rockland Street has a nice trail, a really easy trail that goes through it, and obviously I'm all for putting some of these parcels into conservation so that there's a place for nature and where we can go and observe nature and appreciate nature.
Mhm.
Is all I'm sure all of you feel.
Yeah. Good job on that, Dan. Thanks for taking the time to do that because, like you said,
Well, what I'll do is I'm going to send you all what I have, all right? I'll just send an email with the maps that I have that I've made up as an example of maybe I'd be happy to work on some more if that'll help.
Yeah, because the
It
one I'm
definitely would be. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is what I have, is, printed out,
That's in the plan. Yeah,
open
that's,
spaces rec plan,
mm.
but I don't have it electronic and I don't have any way to manipulate it, so I
Can you
think
scan it?
I think it's already been scanned multiple times and it's very grainy.
Oh, okay.
I don't have the electronic version. Do we have an electronic version of it?
I'll check with Liz. I'm not aware of
Okay.
anything other than a PDF version
Yeah.
of that.
We might be able to reach out to OCPC because they're probably the ones that did the map.
They did do that original plan, so yeah,
So-
it's certainly worth asking.
Right. Bruce might be able to help us with that.
Thanks, Kathy.
Oh, he's not with OCPC anymore.
Yeah, but he knows everybody there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be what you showed, Dan, I thought was great.
Yeah.
It would be great to have that for the whole town and just have it in one big thing. Even, if we meet in person, have it blown up and we can all
Yeah.
just go and look and just get an idea overall of what we have already.
Well, it may not be too daunting. I may be able to find because the state has the Mass Mapper. I think they used to call it Oliver. It's a great mapping system. Matter of fact, I used it for some of the slides that I was showing to the selectmen of these properties last night. But I may be able to do something with that and put out some sort of an internship opportunity. To someone who just come in with the planning department and take care of that. Some future planner may be interested in doing that. So I will ask Liz to reach out because I know we did that in Duxbury. We had actually GIS layers though that they did it for, but I think it's the same sort of thing. And I think it's probably not too hard. It's just time consuming, but I don't see why we couldn't get that done. It would actually be really nice to have.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to kick in images of the areas because I have the camera equipment and all. I can put together some videos or stills of the areas to use to show the public if it comes to that.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome. I'm just so inspired by the fact that Abington has a really great conservation commission and a super awesome open space committee that is really interested in preserving some of our natural areas. I'm just so happy about that.
Well, we appreciate all your help, Dan, because you're so passionate about it. So honestly, I think you've opened a bunch of our eyes too. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so next steps here? We looking to basically we hand it off to you guys to vote these parcels into conservation.
I think ultimately it would be nice if the open space committee recommends them all as well. Just to just to let them know whether you do it through a vote or just hands up that we do highly recommend that you follow through with the recommendation also of the selectmen and put these into conservation. I think it's just showing some good unity here that we want everybody to see that that the committees are all on board with this.
Yeah, sure. Aaron, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to place all properties into conservation.
Awesome. I'll second that.
And I'm assuming everybody on open space.
Yep.
Roberta and Megan.
I vote yes.
And I think Roberta's still on. She is not.
I don't think she's on, but can the three of us vote it through? Since
Yeah.
we're a majority, or do we need her?
Nope, I think that's fine.
All right.
I think you're good. And now it's Paul. It's all you.
Somebody from the board want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, second?
Well, you gotta,
I have to read it out formally, right?
All right.
I think if you read the parcels, it would be good.
Okay, I have to look. Do we have that? I have to find that. Does anyone have it in front of them right now?
I
Can you share
do.
this-
Yeah.
Can you share your screen?
Yep.
And I'll,
Actually, you know what? I'll just throw them right in the chat. That way, don't have to worry about sharing.
okay. Okay. Okay, great. So do we want to do this one by one? Or just I'll read the whole thing out?
Yeah, why don't you just read the whole thing out? That way we'll be having it. The public will.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for the following properties to be under the care and
Preservation
preservation of the Conservation Committee. There'll be zero
in perpetuity.
in perpetuity. Thank you. 0 Chestnut Street, parcel 49-13, 0 Oakland Road, parcel 63-132, 0 Oakland Road, parcel 63-133, 0 Oakland Road, parcel 63-134, 0 Oakland Road, parcel 63-128, 0 Oakland Street, parcel 2243, 251 Rockland Street, parcel 22-42A, and 0 Rockland Street, parcel 22-42B.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nobody, right? So that's it, right? You guys have to make a motion to adjourn and then we will, or?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
That second.
I vote yes.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Aye.
It was